There is the announcement. Ron Rivera heading back to Cal. He was a member of the team that had the band on the field.
1982.
You were on the field. Were you on the field? Ron Rivera's with us here.
No, it was actually the kickoff. They just scored to take the lead, and it was the last 4 seconds. They squibbed it, and we were able to score going through the band. But no, I was on the sideline, mad as hell, and all of a sudden we go down to score to win the game.
You could have gone onto the field and thrown a block. Nobody would have even known.
You're probably right.
What was that like after that? I mean,
it was mayhem. Absolute mayhem. It really was because, if you watch it, you'll see a group of us run over to the referees to see what they're talking about, and then the head referee steps away and gives the touchdown signal, and it was euphoria. It happened in our own Memorial Stadium on campus, and it was a tremendous, tremendous victory for us.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. Like one of those things that you see as a little kid that's like one of your first football memories.
I could only imagine for a young Cal fan to be there and see that as their first football memory and say, man, I want to do that someday.
Right. You look good in the jacket, man.
Well, what's fun? I got an opportunity to go back. I was there when ESPN brought their pregame show. That was a tremendous event for the university. I was there at the Cal-Stanford big game. That was tremendous. And, this whole thing came about as an opportunity to come back to university, be involved. We're still working through it. We haven't come to complete agreement yet, but it's in the works and it should be done very shortly. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to go home and, work with the athletic department, work with the football department, and also work for the chancellor in the university.
Yeah, it's cool.
Well, you're known by most football fans today as a coach, two-time coach of the year, 2013 and 2015, but you played a little football, and we were talking before. You know a little thing or two about this guy's dad.
Oh, old school football. Right. So would you believe in this comment? Like, teams and players used to hate each other more in the old days, right?
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. I mean, you wanted to punish, you wanted to beat them down.
Right.
And it was a whole different attitude because the game was looked at and played a little differently.
Right.
But there was a respect. You had a respect for guys like your dad who played great, were physically, played hard, played physical, got up, and got back into the huddle. And there was that respect you had for guys that were tough guys.
Right.
And quarterbacks were some of the toughest guys around. They really were.
Yeah, it is. You think, what is it like? Free agency has probably made everybody a little nicer to each other, right? Because you're back in the old days, it was like, no, it's the same 40.
You were stuck.
It's the same 50 guys every year, and it becomes personal with the other team a little bit, right?
It really did.
Right.
And when you play against somebody that's a constant rival, we ended up playing New York Giants more than we needed to, because we would end up winning our division, and then you'd end up having to be matched up the next year again against each other.
Right.
But that was just the way it was.
Yeah. And I remember my dad legitimately like you guys, like him not liking you guys, like legitimate, like
it was mutual.
Freaking Richard Dent and Mike Singletary, right? But now when he sees them, it's like always love, or
But it's the respect.
Right. It is.
And that's something that was very important.
Right.
I tell him all the time, I don't know how his dad survived, because you guys were playing on cement with a thin layer of green carpet on top of it, and he's getting pounded into the concrete all the time by all those teams back then. You think about some of the great defensive players in the 80s. It's scary when you start listing all the names.
Well, 87, he might remember this. I was in the stands for the Bears game. They had, Giants had won the Super Bowl. The year before that, the Bears had won the Super Bowl. It was the first time a fan in the crowd made me cry during the game, right? A Bears fan made me cry, and I was 7. Okay, but this is
what they say to make you cry.
Well, my dad was knocked out, cold, like unconscious, not moving, and now there was no concussion protocol. He was in 4 plays later again, right? Yeah. But they were like, they were doing that to me, and but it was such a different game and era altogether.
It really was, and like you said, the protocol was something that we didn't know about,
right?
And I think that's a shame. But I think today they understand the significance of making sure that they take care of the guys. Because you want guys to have these long, healthy careers and then live these long, healthy lives. You really do.
Right. I think the health and safety sensitivity over the past 12, 14 years, that's another thing that bands the players together. They understand we have an obligation to take care of each other. We're not just out there beating the hell out of each other, because there are consequences to that.
Right.
There really are. And I think that's a great point, because of the fact that these guys understand what it takes and what it means to play this game. And the longer you can play, the better you can be, later on in life.
Yeah, sure. How about do you find yourself this year going, why couldn't have Jayden Daniels come out in the draft a year earlier?
No, I do. To be honest with you,
great.
That's the one thing everybody can understand. This is a quarterback-driven league. Yeah. If you have a quarterback you have a chance to be good. If you have a quarterback that's really where he needs to be, you have a chance to get into the playoffs. A better quarterback, you go into the playoffs, and with a great quarterback, you're here.
Yeah.
You're here at the Super Bowl, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the two best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Although I will say Jayden Daniels, what a phenomenal performance this year by a rookie. He's a guy that will win Offensive Rookie Year, but he's also a guy that's going to be talked about for league MVP, in my opinion.
Right.
You had a great quarterback in Carolina, so you lived it with Cam Newton.
Yes.
And Super Bowl 9 years ago, I mean, the quarterback is what gets you here. Was Jayden Daniels on your radar screen 2023 season?
He was. In all honesty, he really was. It's one of the guys that Marty Herney and I talked about. We talked about Caleb Williams, and we talked about Drake May. Those were the three top ones we really believed. Bo Nix was also in that conversation, another guy that we thought had some good opportunities. And what's interesting is you look at the guys that were coming out, and you try to figure out where you would slot everybody and put everybody. But the name that everybody kept coming back to, especially in Washington, was Jayden. And I think a big part was everybody knew Caleb would go one.
Right.
So their focus and attention went right on it. And I think that because it worked out that way. What was real interesting was the way they got themselves prepared. I did a piece on Jayden for the NFL Network. And one of the things that I did was I called Cliff Kingsbury. And Cliff and I had this conversation. I said to Cliff, what did you do to get ready for him? He said, well, got an opportunity. We talked to the coaches at LSU, talked about what he did best. We kind of researched his background as a player. Well, go back to when I was in Carolina, we decided to go with Cam Newton. Rob Chudzinski and the offensive staff did the same exact thing. When we went and we investigated, we went to Auburn, we talked to the head coach, we talked to Gus Malzahn, find out what they did offensively, and then find out what did he do best. Let's take that and incorporate it into what we do. Let's don't force him to play a system. Let's give him an opportunity to do what he does best and have it incorporated. So now, when you run waggle pass, it's not just always from under center.
Yeah, right.
You could do the same action out of shotgun.
Right.
Now he gets shotgun, he does the fake, does his roll, turns around. Well, it's no different than if he did it under center. And guess what? You now have two plays.
Yeah, exactly.
From just different
just
formations.
A little different look, a little different feel for the defense.
So that's what you saw coming from Washington, because that's exactly what Cliff Kingsbury did. He went and found out what this kid does best. Let's incorporate in what we want to do.
There was a story that came out the day before the NFC Championship about the former owner of the team hating the fact that the team was doing so well. What were your emotions this year watching that team thrive?
Oh, I was fired up. I mean, Dan Quinn and I are friends. And Dan actually reached out to me. We talked about the team. We went to coffee. We would meet, talk about stuff. And then I would text him all year. I'm happy where they are. I talked about this. I grew up a Redskin fan.
Right.
Okay, and I use the word. I
it's
apologize.
okay. We got it. We know it.
But I did. I grew up a fan.
Right.
And so to seeing them where they are, it was fine. There was a lot of gratification. But Dan did me a solid by when somebody had asked him a question. Hey, look, we got to give Coach Rivera credit for doing what he did, putting us in this position. That was great. That really meant a lot to me, and it spoke of who Dan is as a man, in my opinion. So I was fired up for them. In fact, I met Jayden for the first time as he was walking out earlier. And so that was really cool. And so to see what he did, see the success they had, that was really, to me, very gratifying.
I know I want to hear what you're doing with USAA, certainly. But I got one more thing about your Super Bowl experience. Because we know sometimes the best team doesn't win the Super Bowl. I always felt like, man, the more times you guys would have played that game, you would have beat Denver more than they would have beat you. You played them 10 times. What do you think about that?
I believe I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
But that day they were the best team.
They were, right.
And that's the thing about football.
Yeah.
Is on any given Sunday means on any given day, the best team wins. Not the best team overall, but the best team that day is the one who's going to win. And that's what happened. I relive it all the time because there were a couple things in there that maybe I could have made a different decision, or maybe something else could have happened.
Right.
But that's the beauty of this game, is every game's going to be different. Every game has its own personality, and the best team of the day wins, and that's the way I've always looked at it.
Yeah. It's funny you say you relive it. You still think back to the playoff game against Washington 20 years ago. It just never goes away.
Yeah.
That inability, it's so close. You're always going to think Josh Allen is having dreams about things differently in the AFC Championship. Right. You just never can get away from it.
Absolutely, you can't. But that's the beauty again of it, because now you have a memory. You relive it, you relive it. You always think about it, and that's what this game is. I think one of the beauties of this game is that it's so many different things could have happened, and so many different things do happen.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, let's hear it. I want to hear what you're doing with USAA.
Well, what I'm doing with USAA, I'm here. I'm supporting USAA and their salute to service efforts. I'm a salute to service winner, and it was my honor because my dad served the United States military for 32 years. He was an Army officer. I was an Army brat. We lived all over. We lived in Fort Ord, California, which was our home base, Fort Meade, Maryland, Fort Lewis, Washington.
Wow.
Went out to Heidelberg, Germany, went to Fort Gulick, Panama, and then Dad went to Vietnam twice, went to Korea. So, his military background is very strong. I inherited it from USAA. This year's USAA Salute to Service Award winner is George Kittle. I mean, a guy that deserves it very well, a guy that has always supported the military.
Right.
He's been nominated a couple of times. This is his chance. He won it this year, so very happy for George and very, very grateful for the support that USAA has given us.
Yeah, really cool thing.
One of the things fans don't realize is, and I'm not saying this to get you to say anything bad about prior ownership, but I try to get fans to understand ownership matters.
Yes, it does.
And did you sense, and how much did you sense the shift in your last year there when it had gone from the prior owner to Josh Harris?
You can feel the energy level. I mean, even though we didn't have the year that we would have loved to have had, with the new ownership, you could feel the energy level rise in the community. And it was just a result of that, of the ownership change. But the one thing is that the ownership group, you could feel they wanted to do things. They wanted to come in and make things happen. And they had to get, we had to get past that first year. Well, in the first year, they were setting themselves up for the coming draft, the preparation to go forward. And doing what they did, I understand. It's about going forward. And they were ready to do that. And so we see where they are. And that's a huge thing. That really is.
We need to let you run, but people need to understand you had a huge role in weathering storms. And you're part of this story as the team begins its upsurge. Don't forget what Ron Rivera did.
That's right.
To get this franchise on the right track and to keep it from going completely off the rails, which very easily could have happened those last few years.
Well said. I appreciate that, guys. And I really do. And again, I really do appreciate the support that we got from the community and the way they've treated us. I mean, it's crazy because Stephanie and I will be out somewhere and somebody will come and say, thank you for getting these guys ready and putting them in a good position.
You've always been top-notch all the way around, Ron, all the way around. Even when I was there playing in the NFL, I looked over in warm-ups one day, and you had your glasses on, and I was about to play the Broncos. You were the Chargers D coordinator, and I was trying to, wave at him and just say hi a little bit, and he kind of had his glasses on. He was sitting there. And even then, when he was like, I'm going to kill you today, he was like,
you're a
hey,
Sims.
how are you?
That's exactly.
You don't get a pass.
You look at that, you see the name, and you go, oh, God.
Ron Rivera.
But we did.
Great seeing you, Ron, as always. All the best at Cal.
Blindsided me and crushed me. I fumbled. It was a bad day.
Awesome. That's a good day.
For him.
We'll be back from New Orleans. Thanks, Ron.
No, thank you, guys.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.